Movie buffs, welcome back to the Movie Bay. This is D. In today's video, we're doing the Tim Talk Talkies Community Challenge, your top 25 movies from the 80s. But before we dive in, let me just elaborate on my man Dell over at Dell's Movie, his list, and what he said. He made a lot of sense. Your list can change. Your favorite movies can change depending on what day. My top picks change. Now, there's a few movies in my collection that are very static. They're what I would call stamped in their position in my collection. And Seven and Unforgiven, movies like that, those are stamped. Those are in my top three. Seven being my number one movie of all time. That, no matter what list, that's going to always be number one. But my top movies change. And if I do a list, the order can change. It just all depends on how I'm feeling when I pull the movies, how I feel when I'm doing the list. The larger your collection, the harder it is to come up with a static list of 25, 40, 50 movies. So they change. So without further ado, let's dive in and take a look at my top 25 for today, for this list. If I do this list tomorrow, it might be a little bit different. But let's go ahead and take a look at, let's start off with number 25, 1986's The Wraith. Fantastic movie. I enjoyed this movie. When this movie came out, I was a young teenager. I had just stepped into my teens when this movie came out. So this was a really good watch. It was a cool movie. It was really good. I enjoyed it. I think Charlie Sheen, Randy Quaid, Nick Cassavetes, if I'm saying his name right. The music in here was good. Fantastic movie, guys. And a really good movie, especially when you're watching this as a teenager. It's a really good movie. It had everything. It had a little bit of sex in it. It had a little violence in it. It had cool cars, racing. What more could you want? It had mild drug use. I mean, what more could you want? Next up, we got 1981's Mommy Dearest. Faye Dunaway did a great job of playing Joan Crawford. This movie was really good. Joan Crawford here. Faye Dunaway is, Joan Crawford was a Hollywood talent from back in her day, a little bit before my time. And this movie was good. It was all about her life with her children and her dwindling career. And she had a lot of mental issues. You need to check this one out. It was a good movie, a great watch. It's still a good watch today. Next up we have, let's see, 1982's The Wrath of Khan. The Wrath of Khan is the second movie in the Kirk timeline. A fantastic movie. I love the Star Trek movies, and The Wrath of Khan is in my top three. Next up we have, to me, now there's many versions of this particular movie. I have about 5 different versions in my personal collection. But I'm talking about, and this is A Christmas Carol. This is the George C. Scott version of A Christmas Carol. Now, I think this is the definitive version of A Christmas Carol. Some people say the Jim Carrey version, which was excellent. Some people say the 1935 version. I think it is either 1935 or 1936. Some people say that's the best version, whichever one you like. But is it 1935? Yes, 1935 with Seymour Hicks as Ebenezer Scrooge. But I like this one. This is a fantastic movie, and I can watch this movie on Christmas, off Christmas. I could just watch this if I want to watch a good movie. It is that good. George C. Scott did an amazing job as Ebenezer Scrooge. I loved it. Next up we have, that was 1984's A Christmas Carol. Next up we got 1985's A Nightmare on Elm Street. The original Nightmare on Elm Street. This is the Blu-ray set. It's not really what I would call a box set, but for all intents and purposes, this is the 7-film set. So this is a box set. Now, again, shout out to Dell. He got the big Nightmare on Elm Street box set that came with the 3D glasses, and each disc formed the Freddy picture when you put them all together. I had that set for years, and I actually traded it in at Goodies Disc Exchange for this set. And I know it's a far cry. That was just a beautiful set, but it was big and it took up a lot of space. And this is a much smaller set and it's on Blu-ray. So I opted to go with this one. But Dell, that is a banging set. I had that set and I should have kept that set and got this one, but I didn't. All right, next up, we're going up to 1983's Cujo. I never seen nobody really talk too much about this movie, but it's a great movie. I really did enjoy this. This is one of the first Stephen King movies that I remember watching as a kid. and I enjoyed it. Cujo was a big old Saint Bernard. They tried to do, I'm not going to say like copy it, but they did a movie in the early 90s called Man's Best Friend. It was good, but it wasn't better than Cujo. It was a good movie, though. I got it in my collection. I thought it was a good movie. Next up, we have 1989's, it barely made the list, Harlem Nights. This is definitely one of the better movies for me that came out in the 80s. And what a way to wrap up the 80s with a movie like this. You had it all. Della Reese, Eddie Murphy, Richard Pryor, Red Fox. I mean, Danny Aiello. The talent in this movie was just crazy. Jasmine Guy, Tommy Ford, Arsenio Hall. There's just too much talent to talk about in this movie. Harlem Nights, very funny movie. Very, just ahead of his time with the comedy, in my opinion. People are still spoofing this movie and using quotes from this movie to this day. Fantastic movie, Harlem Nights. Next up, we got 1989's Lean on Me. Story of Joe Clark. They called him Crazy Joe. Now they call him Batman. This movie is fantastic. This is based on a true story. Joe Clark was a school principal, a legendary school principal that cleaned up a school. I want to say this school was I want to say this school was somewhere in New Jersey. I could be wrong, but he cleaned up a really bad school and made it one of the top schools in the country. Top public schools in the country. Next up, we got, let's see here, 1988's Coming to America. Coming to America is definitely a classic. Eddie Murphy, Arsenio Hall. And you got it. This movie, now look, if you're a Sam Jackson fan, you're going to love this movie because this is the movie that launched the career of Sam Jackson. He had a small little part in this movie that I do believe this movie launched his career. He had a small part. He was the guy who robbed the McDowell's. And then from there, Sam Jackson just started popping up all over the place. And the man became the hardest working man in Hollywood. And he's got more films than any other actor in Hollywood. His filmography is long. His accomplishments, he's probably the most accomplished actor in Hollywood. So Coming to America helped launch the career of Samuel L. Jackson. Next up, we got 1983's Christine. How can you not love Christine? Christine is the kind of movie that you can watch it today and it looks good and it holds up. The effects was good. All practical and they looked great. I particularly like the one where they beat the car up and then it brought itself back together, and then the flaming Christine when she was on fire and she was killing all the guys. Fantastic. Next up, we got 1982's First Blood. This is the collection here, the Rambo collection. This got all the original 4 films. Rambo First Blood. I love that movie. Everybody loved that movie. And this is where the old term, the Rambo knife. After this movie, you could get the big Rambo knives with the compass, with the screw-on compass. It was crazy. People was actually buying those things and doing some pretty bad things with those knives. But then Crocodile Dundee comes along. That's not a knife. This is a knife with damn near pocket machete. So again, Rambo, bring back a lot of movies, but particularly that Rambo knife. And everybody called these type of knives Rambo knives. Crazy. Next up, we got 1985's Clue. I love this movie. I thought this was funny. I thought it was just great. It's timeless. You can watch this movie today. It holds up. It's just a great movie. It's a great whodunit. It really is. It is an absolute great whodunit. When you find out who really done it, it'll shock you. Next up, we have 1988's Die Hard. This is the Die Hard collection. We talking about the original Die Hard, baby. This is a Christmas movie. For those of you who, is always a debate around Christmas time, is Die Hard a Christmas movie? Yes, Die Hard 2 is actually a Christmas movie too. Okay, next up we have 1984's Beverly Hills Cop. The original Beverly Hills Cop. Although I like Beverly Hills Cop 2 just as much as 1, but we're going to talk about the first one. I didn't care too much for 3. Next up, we have 1985's. I'm saying next up. I got to give you guys numbers here. Numbers. Number 11. I know I skipped a whole bunch of numbers here, but at the 11th spot, we got Back to the Future. The original Back to the Future. Now, I'm going to come out and say I loved all three of these equally. I loved 1, 2, and 3 equally. Some people didn't care too much for 3. I loved 3. I thought 3 was funny, especially with Biff's ancestor, Tannen. I loved it. I loved this movie. It was fantastic. All the movies was great. Back to the Future is a great franchise, and for the love of God, please don't let Hollywood touch this. This is sacrosanct. Don't let them remake this. Don't let them reboot this. Leave it alone. This is one of them things where Hollywood, keep your dirty paws off of my Back to the Future. Next up, we got number 10. Now we getting up there, so I can't skip no numbers here. At the number 10 spot, we got, and I know some of you are like, why is that so low? Because it's not T2, it's the first Terminator. The first Terminator was good, don't get me wrong. It was good, but it's not gonna sit as high on a list as T2, not in my opinion. It's good. Now Dell got the same set that I got. Shout out to my man Dell again. This is a great set. This is a great Blu-ray set. I love it. It's really cool. So I don't feel a need to upgrade to 4K for this. This is a good set. Terminator, good set. A lot of good lines. A lot of the good lines in the Terminator franchise came from this one movie. So yes, Terminator 1 holds the number 10 spot. Next up, we're going to move to a movie that some of you might say, why is that sitting higher than T2? Sometimes with a movie, it's not about how good the movie is as far as, its overall appeal. Is how the movie makes you feel when you watch the movie. And Clash of the Titans is a movie that holds a lot of sentimental value for me because this is a movie that I enjoyed with my entire family. My close family and my extended family would come over because we would really hold a lot of the holiday festivities at my house because we had a decent-sized house when I was a kid. Again, it wasn't a mansion or anything, but it was a decent size. So we used to host a lot of the gatherings for the holidays at my house. Not all of them, but a lot of them. And we would have a lot of family come over, and we would watch this movie. I remember watching this several different holidays. So that's why I love this movie. And it's a good movie, and it holds up pretty good today. Clash of the Titans is at my number 9 spot. 1981's Clash of the Titans. Next up, we have at the number 8 spot, we got 1982's John Carpenter's The Thing. Fantastic movie. I love it. Great practical effects. They hold up today. Now, they hold up, but they look a little, they still hold up, though. They still hold up, but they look a little dated, but it's still a good watch. Now, I liked the remake that came out to this. A lot of people took a dump on the remake. I liked it. I thought it was pretty good. It's not better than this, but it's not trying to be. It's a different movie. I liked it. Next up, we have at the number 7 spot, 1980s, Stanley Kubrick's masterpiece, The Shining. Great movie. I don't really have to say much about this movie. Every blue tuber, this movie seems to have a special spot in their heart. Moving up to number 5, we getting into the good stuff now, baby. We getting into the good stuff. At the number 5 spot, this is the Predator collection. This is the Predator triple pack. I'm talking about the original Predator with Arnold Schwarzenegger. The only Predator movie with Arnold Schwarzenegger. Need I say more? And the Predator came out in 1987. The best movie in the entire franchise. There was a lot of people who liked 2. I thought 2 was good, but the original Predator, to me, not only was the original Predator one of the best movies in the Predator, was the best movie in the entire franchise, it's one of Schwarzenegger's better movies. And we all know Arnie got a shit ton of movies. Next up, we got 1980s, The Blues Brothers. This movie is timeless. It's an enduring classic. I don't really know how to say this, but this movie stands the absolute test of time. If you pop this in your DVD player right now, Blu-ray player, whatever you got, and watch this movie, you're going to love it. The music, the atmosphere, the vibe, the comedy, the chemistry between Belushi and Aykroyd, all the guest appearances, just the music. It was amazing. Even the end of the movie, the Jailhouse Rock scene, Aretha Franklin. I mean, you had Ray Charles. Just the talent was incredible. A fantastic movie. The car chase scenes, it had it all. The Blues Brothers will make everybody's 80 list. Well, maybe not everybody. It definitely make mine. The Blues Brothers, baby. The Blues Brothers. Okay, now we're getting into the good stuff here. 1983 Scarface. Tony Montana, Al Pacino, Scarface. This is my number 3 pick of the 1980s era of movies. And this is in probably my top 10 in all my favorite movies. Probably. I got to check it out again. Number 2. And this was a tough one between trying to figure out 1 and 2. It was tough. Again, now if I did this list tomorrow, the order might switch, but these are going to always be in my favorites as far as 80s movies go. But for the sake of this video, number 2 is going to be Batman 89 with Michael Keaton. Batman 89. Most definitely a banger. Batman 89. Now, again, I was watching Dell's list. So I saw a couple of lists, but I saw his was the most recent one that I watched. And he's right. When they first they advertised the hell out of this movie for months, probably in my area, probably because he grew up in New York, I grew up in Philly. So we basically neighbors. All you saw was advertisements for this. All you saw was billboards for this. This was everywhere. The hype for this movie was too real. But like I said in one of my previous videos, when the public got wind that Michael Keaton was being cast as Batman, there was a lot of backlash. But when they released that trailer and saw Keaton as Batman in that trailer, everybody shut up. All the critics shut right the hell up. Everybody was just, at that point, when they released that trailer, Michael Keaton was damn near solidified. When the movie came out and people saw it, Michael Keaton was Batman. All the naysayers, they had to shut up and eat that crow straight up. Batman 89, number 2. And at the number 1 spot, if you're tracking what I got here so far, you notice one is missing. And you're not going to have an 80s list without this movie. No matter if it's up high on your list or low on your list or in the middle, you're going to have this movie on your list. And that's 1987's RoboCop. This is one of the defining moments of 80s cinema. RoboCop. The best in the series. There's 4 RoboCop movies, 3 for the original timeline. 2 with the first 2 was Peter Weller. The second one, I forget his name. The guy was in the movie Thinner. He did a pretty good job. He did the best he could with what he had. And the remake was, I'm not going to call it trash, but it wasn't true to form. But the original RoboCop is definitely one of the best movies ever made. Paul Verhoeven did an excellent job in that movie. It had it all, like I said before. Tragedy, satire, comedy, action, over-the-top violence. RoboCop, 1987. That is my list. I hope you enjoyed this list. This is D from the Movie Bay. Thank you for watching. I appreciate you guys. Stay tuned for more.